What's going on, folks? My name is Sir Medieval, and today will be the very first day we make a video dedicated specifically to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Most of the time the news has consisted of the newsletter they post on their website each month, because I haven't ever really been able to sit down and go through their roundtables, but it appears they've started to stream their very own newsletter on their channel that goes into their recent updates. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking it out and seeing what's new with the game, including this showcase of the racial passives done by Pantheon's very own Chris Perkins. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into the topic. For today, we're going to be discussing Pantheon's very own racial passives. This is some very cool info to finally get because it allows us to start theory crafting about what kind of gameplay experience we might be able to expect from each race type. Starting it off with the humans, they describe this race as one with an inherent belief that they can do just about anything they set their minds to. It is that belief that has caused humans to always have a specialty in rallying others. For their passives, we have the following. Their first passive is a people inspired, which increases their melee, ranged, and spell haste by 2%. The second being their Wanderlust passive, which grants them a bonus to gain with neutral factions, while also increasing the experience gained through exploration. For weaponry, we have their shield specialization, increasing their shield mastery skill by about 10 points. Last one on the list for the humans is their Thrown Fasty and Charm, which increases the effectiveness of skills and abilities modified by charisma. Moving on to the Elves of Fairtale, this race is described as having two very key characteristics. The first being that they place a high value on their people, and the second being that they hold a steady guard over their incredible tree. During character creation, we will be able to choose between two different types of elves, the Ashen and the Ember. The Ashen Elf is intelligent, wise, and measured, while the Ember Elf is the more warrior-based variant of their race. They believe in meeting all things evil head-on and in a swift manner. For the passives, the general ones that will apply to both variants begin with this: Elucent Ancestry, which grants an innate resistance to nature magic and increases the effectiveness of nature abilities. Following that, the elves will also have access to Nimble, which increases the effectiveness of skills and abilities modified by agility. For the Ashen Elf specifically, we have Deep Resuscitation, which grants an innate 20% chance to resist spell interruption and counterspell abilities. And we also have Sagacious, where Ashen Elves will gain extra spell rating from each point of wisdom. On the Ember Elf side, we have Unflinching, which grants a 20% chance to resist knockdown and knockdown abilities. The last one is Deafness, which grants an extra attack rating from each point of dexterity from them. Next up, we have the Halflings, imbued with mischief and youthful optimism. But although they may look cheerful on the outside, in reality, they're actually a people suffering from a curse, and the wraith that placed it upon them still echoes on. Their passives include Wild Magic, which grants them a resistance to charm and mesmerize effects, Dagger specialization behind their weapon choice, increasing their dagger skill by 10 points, the Fire of Youth that grants a bonus effect to consumables, and finally, Wraith Hunters. This one grants a bonus to damage inflicted against targets of the Wraith class. After that, we have probably my personal favorite that definitely needs no introduction, the Stoutheart, the Iron Wall. It's the Dwarves. These noble warriors by themselves have a great deal of strength and mastery of the forge, but in Pantheon they are supported by their very own deity in his physical form, the Dwarven Father. For their passives, the first one is Fortitude, where they're able to gain extra hit points for each point of stamina that they have. On top of that, the next one is the Grip of the Dwarven Father. This one grants immunity to disarm effects. Alongside Ice and Stone, this one grants a bonus to cold resistance, frigid and toxic acclimation. And lastly, we have Mountain Forged, which will increase blunt weaponry by 10 points. From the sounds of it, dwarves seem to be best suited for tanking. Halflings of course sound like really good thieves, and both elves and humans have their own specialties, but that'll be up for us to decide. We'll have a lot of variety at our fingertips when everything falls into place for the game, so we'll have to see how it ultimately goes. For the Archai, they are described as being given the great gift of liberation long ago, but this liberation did come at a great cost. Instead of remaining as the being of lights and energy they once were, which although powerful, it is still seen as a form of prison for the Archai. Passive-wise, we have first, Living Reservoir, which reduces the mana drain effects by 20%. Next one is Effervescent. It makes them immune to effects that drain endurance. And during character creation, we will also be given the ability to attune to an element for the Archai. These elements consist of fire, water, wind, and earth. For these attunements, we will also receive bonuses to the effectiveness of element-based abilities that match the ones we're attuned to. And lastly, we've got Natural Acclimation, which grants a bonus to your element based on which affinity you choose during creation. Fire will get you a bonus to Scorching. For water, the bonus will be Frigid. For wind, it will be Wind Shear. And for earth, it will be Toxic. Next up, we've got the Gnomes of Skyhold. Now, although I have a special bias against anything smaller than a dwarf, with old horror stories to go along with it, the Gnomes of Terminus have a pretty cool backstory. As a people, gnomes are extremely interested in magic, and when they first arrived to these lands, they had spent over 50 years in complete solitude and conducted their hidden business behind closed doors. But now finally, they have emerged. For their first passive, we have Incantation Mastery, which gives them a 20% chance to resist silence, followed by Enigmatic Brilliance, and that one gives them extra mana for each point of intelligence. Ethereal Being is also another one that increases their dodge chance by 3%. After that, we have Constant Scholar, which increases the rate at which skills improve. The next group of beings are ones of a ruthless nature, often being characterized as having an animalistic personality. Chris Perkins has stated that when they were creating this race, they had often invoked the idea of raptors, for their behavior and for their ferocity. This race is the Scar. For their first passive, we have Long Suffering, which grants them an increased maximum health by 5. Next, we have Fear of the Nine Gods, granting them a 20% chance to resist fear effects. And then we have Pack Hunter, granting up to a maximum of 5% of their movement speed when in range of other Scar members. And just like the rest, in terms of disposition, their specialty will be Verse Predator. The second to last race that gets described is the Ogres of Broken Maw. They are depicted as having immense physical strength and stamina. They are completely geared toward combat with their skill and mindset. When they enter into combat, they enter a sort of battle trance, where it's just the ogre and the enemy in the conflict. For their passives, first we have Broken Maw's Grit, where ogres will gain an extra attack rating for each point of strength. After that, we have Battle Hardened, which grants a 25% chance to resist non-magical stun effects. This one also becomes 100% immunity to non-magical stuns during battle trance. The last, but definitely not the least, is Dark Mirror. Taking some inspiration from the Chiss and Star Wars lore, these ones are characterized by myths and legends that pervade their culture. They're cunning, they're cold, they're calculated and highly logical, dangerous creatures. For their first, we have Vestige of Sirenai, granting them underwater breathing and increased swim speed. Next, we have Perceptive, which increases their insight skill by 10. Following that, we have Embittered Psyche, increasing both their stealth effectiveness and awareness by 10 points. And lastly, we have Born of Deep Waters, granting them a bonus to anaerobic and pressure acclimation. I'm hoping that each and every one of these races make it into Pantheon when the game fully launches. I know it's not overall the most exciting first thing we can talk about when it comes to this game, but it's one that I really wanted to talk about after seeing. I'm really excited for this game to take charge of the PvE side of MMOs for the future. I still believe that there needs to be a balance between the games that offer that open world sandbox PvP experience and those that expand on or provide the player versus environment challenge and experience a lot of gamers have come to love. In my mind, Pantheon is another perfect one for that. And with that final thought, folks, that'll be all for now, but I thank you very much for watching and I'll catch you for the next one. Farewell.